Why diversification is not a dirty word.
And who's killing it in the toy game on Netflix? All this on today's episode of Breakfast and Convos. Thank you so much for joining us live. I am Liberty White with Chosen Media.
And I am T. Adeola, digital marketing expert.
All right, T. Another week, another live stream. Thank you to everyone who is tuning in. And this is, I always do this at the beginning of the show, make sure that everything is firing. So while I check that, T, how's your week? What's new?
My week was good. No complaints. No complaints at all. I'm really looking forward to this weekend. So I am speaking at an anti-bullying conference at the Dayton Mall in Dayton, Ohio, and my son is going to be joining me. So I'm going to, avail myself of the benefits of childhood labor. So that's awesome. I'm going to make him set up the vendor table and sell a few books. But really looking forward to it. Really looking forward to it. And it's getting colder here up
Yes.
north because, in Dayton, Ohio, we ride around on dire wolves. That's how we get down.
Okay.
But how about yourself, Liberty?
All going well, and it's interesting because I was thinking in my mind, like, do I out her because the little one got in a little bit of a little bit of trouble last
What
weekend.
happened?
So we're not gonna go into what happened, but parenting has jumped in. We got to discipline. We can't always be the fun parent all the time. So there was
Story.
no, we spoke about Roblox last week. So like no Roblox this weekend. She did get to some family time and hang out, but she did not. We typically have girls' night where she gets to watch whatever program she typically picks some show, whether it be something on Netflix or whatnot. So we did not have that tonight, but not tonight. We didn't have it over the weekend. But interestingly enough, today's topic is talking about how Hasbro is crushing it with they're the home to My Little Pony.
Mm-hmm.
Did you watch that growing up, T? Was that
I did
part of your
not.
your?
However,
Okay.
as I've matured and I have a daughter myself,
Okay.
I've grown to appreciate them at a much deeper level. Now, my daughter's 8, going on 35, so she's all about like Disney Plus and Hey Jesse and all that good stuff. So she's kind of phased out of My Little Pony. But I would not describe myself as a brony, but I respect the hustle because My Little Ponies are OP. Like if you look at some of the feats of My Little Pony, like when I'm bored, I'm just trying to wind down, I watch a YouTube channel called Death Battle where they
Yeah.
take these fictional characters and they pit them against each other to see who will win. My Little Ponies don't take too many L's.
No,
At
and
all.
it's with Netflix doing remake, bringing them back because that was what easily 20, 30 years ago, if not
Mhm.
more with
I'm only
shows.
25, by the way, so it couldn't have been that long, but go
Not that
ahead.
long, right? But they Hasbro is crushing it with they're looking at investing about $750 million in content. So this is not even their main business is their toy makers, making
Mhm.
toys. But now they recognize the game and the importance of content because yes, through their distribution with Netflix and just their Q3 earnings have skyrocketed. And the reason I bring that up because we're entering holiday seasons. We've got Halloween coming up, but then also this is where we're going to start seeing the plethora of ads for toys and games. And as people are thinking about what they're getting for the holidays and just how, the worlds and how content has tied into that and really elevated, it's not only the entertainment factor, but then also the business factor. And that's what we do when we come in Breakfast and Convos. We're tying all of these worlds together and just seeing. And I want to just make sure that I'm quoting these numbers accurately. Like even Hasbro's revenue has shot up like 11%. And they do say that they had a little dip. And that was because of, what we're seeing with the supply chain issue that's going on around the world. And so that's a whole other, we need to earmark that to see if we can bring someone on to really speak to that, because with e-commerce booming, but that also means you're getting products and what that delivery, but that's a whole other show.
Yeah. But just bringing it back to what we said at the top of the show, diversification is not a dirty word, and here's why. But like, there are certain parts in our lives where we don't want to diversify,
Mm.
like marriage, for example. Like that typically gets you in trouble if you diversify your spouses, unless you live in Utah. But that's
I was
special.
wondering. I was
But
like, where
you,
is
you,
T
pro- you
going with
probably don't
this?
want to diversify that. But Hasbro, rather, they're really taking a page from Disney's book, right? Because think about Disney Plus and the smash hit that was. To your point, the core of Disney's business is not movies or media. It's actually never been, even though they do that, their core business is parks. They make the most
Real
money
estate.
from you coming to Disneyland or Disney World or Epcot Center or whatever Disney property you frequent. That is their main revenue source. And everything on top of that just brings you deeper into the Disney ecosystem, brings you deeper into the universe, and makes you less likely to leave. So their play into Disney Plus, as well as the movies and everything, that's all a play to sell more theme park tickets.
Right.
Hasbro's doing the same thing. Hasbro's core business is toys. And they've seen how Disney has absolutely crushed it. I think now, to be fair, I think Disney would have crushed it anyway, but Disney came all the way up, like all the way up. They came all the way up in the pandemic. And Hasbro's like, yeah, we're doubling down on content because it supports our main business. So diversification is not a dirty word. You want to be able to diversify your revenue streams, but do it in such a way that where it's strategic and it bolsters your core business.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, even thinking about someone like, I think last season we kind of touched on, Ryan, the YouTube sensation, Ryan's World, where we've got the app. I remember seeing him in Target. I remember putting that on social because I was like, this kid, there's this little mini, Ryan, and we've got his activity books. And so from now, that's the reverse side of, creating content, building a brand, building community in a way that now, these other players come in and they're now monetizing that brand. So it'll be interesting to see in some years how he switches and how that works, because he's getting older. That's the thing. There's a lifespan you have with as a YouTuber in that space. But speaking of Target, I just wanted to give a shout out to Terry Nichelle Bradley of the Brown Toy Box, because she is now going to be in Target. So this is an Atlanta woman owned business, Black woman owned business, who is creating products for that speak to STEAM and that whole economy, and how and I'll tease this out. I'll come back and tease this out when we've got Stefanie on today to talk about capital and what it takes. So just to, as I'm in this Techstars program right now, that, I'm looking forward to those steps that we'll be able to take to increase and grow, and because it's a long process. I think we were talking about that too, is just the entrepreneurship journey where you go back. I think I remember her sharing on LinkedIn, which we're streaming live, so hey to everyone who's watching us on LinkedIn, of just the process, because she had to go back to the drawing boards, and now whatever that form of pivot, to be able to now have a partnership that she has to be in Target. So, shout out to your whole team and just that growth and acceleration there.
Congratulations. That's a beautiful thing. Beautiful thing.
Awesome. Well, without further ado, speaking of entrepreneurship and capital and being a woman in business, we want to bring up Stefanie Diaz, who is the capital specialist. Hey, Stefanie, welcome, welcome.
Hello, both of you. Thank you so much for having me here. Really excited to dive in.
We love it. Thank you for being here. So, if you would walk us through, the origin story, because no one wakes up Stefanie Diaz. I know the song goes, "I woke up like
I
this."
did.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. So, give us that
Well,
origin story.
And I love telling this story because it is a winding journey that I could never have intentionally planned out, but it has unfolded. So, a little bit about me coming out of my MBA, I ended up landing within a pharmaceutical startup. And over the course of 4 years, we grew that company to over 100 million in annual revenue. And I was reporting right into the owner, small team. And that really, I had always, had definitely already had an entrepreneurial spirit, but that gave me this experience, and just seeing so much, being a startup, wearing many hats within the organization, and just a strong skill set to take forward. So I knew that I had the chops to go out and do my own thing, but I really didn't know what that was going to be. The only thing that I knew at that point is that it was likely not going to be in pharmaceuticals. And so I needed to pivot. And I wasn't really sure how I was going to do that. And at that point, I wasn't really in a rush. Pharma has, good pay. So I was comfortable, and just doing my thing. But it was actually when I became a mom, and you're holding your little one, and I was thinking, wow, I just want him to pursue his dreams. And I realized, okay, how am I an example of that for him? And so I knew I needed to figure things out. And around that time, I was listening to a lot of podcasts, getting really inspired. And I started to have this idea that maybe a podcast would be part of my pivot. And so in 2015, I launched my first podcast, which was called Mastermind Your Launch. You can still find it today on Spotify and Apple. But I started interviewing business owners. And what happened was it quickly evolved to interviewing tech startup founders in the Atlanta ecosystem. And then before I knew it, I was interviewing venture capitalists. And so that's a big part of where that journey began, was via a podcast and interviewing. I started to build a network. I started to host events for founders. And before I knew it, I was being asked to do coaching and consulting around mostly marketing and positioning for founders and investors as well. And so I love that. Just all in, really enjoying the journey. And you'll see there are many evolutions in my journey, where I feel like, there become these moments where we feel like there's an aspect of ourselves that's kind of being asked to be integrated. So around 2017, I was coming out of a divorce, really awakening to myself, my feminine energy. And I said, this is something I feel like I want to share. Like, why keep this all to myself? And I really knew that I wanted to work with women. I had been male dominated pharma, male dominated tech. And I said, I just feel like lit up to work with women. Ended up launching an event called Whoa for women only entrepreneurs at the time. Today, it is the women only experience. And Whoa was like this really fresh take on networking. We had, amazing speakers, but we also did like affirmations and a dance party. Liberty's been to the Woe main event. She definitely knows. And so, yeah, there's just like this new life. Oh, wait, I can't hear you.
Lots of energy because I'm back here and I'm like geeking out. I'm like, yes, whoa, lots of energy, but also the speakers that you have. Like,
Mhm.
you do such a phenomenal job curating that. And like you said, it's an experience and transformative, and I'll let you continue because I could I could go
Yes.
on.
So, oh yeah, and then so how does like dancing and women take me to venture capital? So what that did, Whoa really started to position me in the world of like women's empowerment. I did a lot of public speaking at that point, so I was at a lot of different events, and I was actually asked to MC a tech conference. And there was a CEO in the audience. We ended up connecting there. Fast forward a couple months, he needed a chief of staff who would work heavily with their investor base. And when he let me know about this opportunity, he was saying, do you know of anyone? I said, me, because I really wanted to know more about what happens after the pitch. I wanted to know more about the investor side of things. And so, I was invited on to that team. It was a fintech company. The role evolved to a head of investor relations role. So I'm engaging our investor network, mostly of high net worths, for that company, raising capital. I was able to facilitate two syndicates while I was there. At the same time, I was connected to Thai Atlanta Angels. I had been working with Thai Atlanta for a while, but getting involved with their angel investor group, running screening and due diligence. And so before I knew it, I'm raising capital on one side and screening deals on the other. So I'm sitting on both sides of the table, learning so much about the process, understanding the nuances that get, the pitch to the next level, and also really seeing that I'm often the only woman, almost always the only Latinx in the room. And knowing I want to do something about this, I feel like I have visibility into the problem. What do I do now? And so from there, I ended up going out to launch my own investor relations firm where I would help founders to fund their businesses. And at the same time,
can we jump on that for a
I
moment
know,
of
like, there's
like
just so much.
how did you know that was the next step for you? Because like you said, you were actually a bridge, because you were here on one side with deal flow and working from the investor side, but then also helping the entrepreneurs or the startups and connect them. So talk us through that.
I have to be very transparent. Sometimes, it's really easy, and this is why I'm so passionate about the work that I do today. It is really easy to be somewhat not subdued, may not be the right word, quiet, silent, a smaller version of yourself when you get into some of these bigger rooms. And and I have worked through that. I've also been in the place where I have found myself being a smaller version of myself. And sometimes it's just not the right room. Sometimes it's just you need to kind of find your own space to expand a little more and come back. And so I really felt, where I come to life, where I am in my fullest and most confident voice is as an entrepreneur. And so that's a big reason why I felt like I want to have a bigger voice, and maybe I just kind of need to do that on my own and just, give myself the room to expand in whatever direction, taking with me the skills, and the relationships that I have cultivated, and then see where I can take it. And so that was a little bit part of that decision making in that moment. That whole journey led me to Zane Venture Fund, where I originally joined as an advisor, and then as a partner later on, helping to get one of the first, venture funds in Atlanta, founded by a, solo Black female GP, huge,
Shout
getting
out to
them to
Shyla.
exactly getting them to their first close. And it's an experience that I will never forget, and a team that I will never forget. And then, it was time for me to go back out on my own again. So I'm focused right now on bringing female founders the breadth of experience that I've learned about raising capital, helping them to arrive at their capital raise in their fullest voice. We can definitely dive into the strategies that I use to help them do that, and staying involved in the world of venture capital to make sure that we continue making progress and making it swiftly. And we can definitely dive into that too.
Real quick, just to and thank you for sharing that, because that was one origin story for the books. Very eloquent, very succinct. I have a little bit of experience with raising funds and pitch competitions and et cetera, and so on and so forth. And something that I struggle with, that I'm sure a lot of founders struggle with, is this feeling of tokenization. Not so much of just not only a lot of times being the only person of color in the room, but knowing that they're looking at you because you check a box, right? Oh, this person checks 2 boxes, so 2 points for
Yeah.
her. Like, that was very difficult for me. And that's one of the reasons why I sort of lost my taste for that. I still pitch, don't get me wrong, but that left a very bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah.
So if you could talk to me a little bit about how you deal with that, and how you coach, especially women of color and female founders, about knowing that you're in a white male dominated space, and that sort of slimy feeling you feel when you're looking at the person across from you and you can tell, oh, this just I feel tokenized.
Yeah. Well, if you're feeling I think you have to listen to your emotions always. And so recognize the situations in which you feel that way, and observe, take some time, because there's two sides to that coin. There is like the, trauma that we carry with us from situation to situation because we've been through so much, and it's really hard to believe that it's ever going to be different and it's ever going to be better. And so there's a part of our own healing and working through that that's part of the solution. And there's also making sure that you're on the other side of the table from the right people. And so being mindful that this you said slimy. Definitely pay attention to that. But is that me projecting, or is that me being intuitive that this is not the right situation for me? So I think that that's something first and foremost. But that's where I feel like having confidence in your ability to communicate your message, having confidence in how you connect with the other person and really tell your story is important, because what we want to get to, maybe it is the fact that I'm a female, that I'm at the table. Maybe it is the fact that I'm a Latina, but I am going to tell my story and talk about this opportunity in such a way that none of that even matters. And you see it for what it is. You see me for who I am and what I bring to the table. And it's so much deeper than what I look like and where I came from. And I also want you to know that where I come from and who I am is actually why this opportunity is the best, the best that I could bring you right now and that you'll see. And so that's a big part of it. We've got to get out of our own heads and keep connecting to our authentic voice, and then realize that not everyone is for us. And so making sure that you check that alignment along the way as well with the strategic partners that you're bringing along.
I
And
love
that's
that. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
that I was gonna say, like, that's a great segue to just, so if, let's say, someone who's watching right now and they are looking at, like, I've done the work, my business, we've done our MVP, whatnot, we've got some traction. When do they come to you, and what does that process look like when you start? Like, how does somebody know? It's almost two questions. How does somebody know that, like, this is the time to raise capital? Because actually Jewel Burke Solomon actually put out a tweet yesterday where she's saying, what they're doing at Collab is we want to normalize, like, focus on the important things, like your team,
Mm-hmm.
your marketing metrics, and there's so much glamour around the fundraising part. So when does someone come to you, and what does that look like?
Right. So, I mean, the best time to come to me is when you're actively fundraising, or in that period of time where you have a clear line of sight to when you're going to begin your capital raise, because we want you to be able to put what we're talking about into action as soon as possible. A lot of the founders that I coach are actively raising capital, they are actively having conversations with investors. And that works really well for us because we can create language, hone their pitch, they can put it into practice, get feedback, come back and say, I had a meeting with this investor and this is what they had to say. And we can see in real time things that are working and then move and make decisions from there. So that's a really good time to engage me on like a one-on-one level. I have a lot of resources though, for founders who are in, before that, digital resources that they can look into just to prepare and get ready. So I would say that in terms of how to know when to raise capital, I mean, ideally, you've been able to get to a point. You got to think about the story that you're going to tell about the opportunity to investors. So, what is working? How have you proven that? And what is the plan to scale it? Because that's really the inflection point where investors can say, yes, it appears as though we have a clear model here. An infusion of capital simply amplifies that, and this is a good time to get involved.
That was so good. Like, in my head, I was like, I need you to say that again, but we'll do this in Breakfast and Convos replay of just that point when you're ready. Again, going back to what is glamorized when it does come to fundraising. So they recognize that they've done the work, that they need help or that bridge to prepare them. What would you say are, and T, I might be taking your question, so forgive me, forgive me in advance. Or you want to ask it of just like even the pitfalls?
No worries, no worries. This has been absolutely amazing. If you could, let's wrap with some tips and pitfalls that should be on people's radars.
Yeah, so I see the world through the lens of expression. And so that's really a big part of how I work with founders. And so I know that a lot, especially like in the fundraising process, a lot of attention is given to the pitch deck. And that is an important asset, for the pitch raise process. And I believe deeply that the words, that how you express and articulate the opportunity are really important too. So one, I'm just going to give you one of my favorite secret ninja tips, and that is to be mindful of, obviously practice like how you're going to talk about what's on each slide of your pitch deck. But I also love to have some really strong language. I call them power statements that you use throughout your pitch deck, and it's a moment. Investors are going to remember moments of your pitch deck, and so I want you to already know what those moments are. And why I say power statements, because I want them to come from you and from your mouth. I don't want them to be on the slide. And so I love helping founders to find out what are the right power statements for them. And then the secret ninja tip is that I love to drop them at the end of each slide right before you transition to the next slide. Such a powerful moment to say, obviously you've seen what's on the slide. I've summarized it. Drop, just a really big statement that hits home, gets the investors thinking a little bit differently, and then you transition to the next slide. It's such, it's inspired by my experience as a public speaker and a thought leader. And I feel like it really helps a founder to lean in to that aspect of their leadership and their thought leadership along with this. So that's one of my favorites.
Understood. And that's great because you have to bringing it all back, you have to have strategy about everything and those power words and where to use them. You would be surprised. A very skillfully placed power word can just change the entire tone of the
All of the
conversation.
energy, right? And I do have a resource for this. If you visit my website, thestefaniediaz.com, I have a free power statements guide that you can download, and then start to work out some of the language yourself.
Love
And
it.
Stefanie, I would be remiss if I didn't touch on the series that you're doing with She Conquers Capital, which is her podcast. Go and listen to it. Some dynamic women on there. But if you can speak to just even anyone who is watching the replay, go ahead, type replay in the comment box. But even what Latin women in capital, like if you were to say one thing to them to encourage them to go out and fundraise, what would that be?
Oh gosh, one thing. I would say to know that there is a really strong community waiting for you to support you. It can be really easy to feel siloed in this industry, especially to feel like you are on the outside of an industry that was built not really thinking about people like you. But there has been so much change, especially in the last few years. And I feel so blessed right now to be in the midst of such a strong community, especially when it comes to Latinx and Latina specifically. She Conquers Capital is on its third season. We kicked off just a couple of weeks ago, and season 3 is Latina edition. So it is 100% Latina investors and founders. And so definitely hit subscribe on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube, and you'll see that you are actually in a lot of amazing company when it comes to being in this industry. And these women are super approachable as well. They want to hear from you and help you. So I would say subscribe, and you'll feel like you've got a whole community behind you.
Love that.
It.
Hit it while it's fuego.
I like how you did that, T. Well, Stefanie, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And again, we will put that, tell us again where people can find you, and we'll put that in our show notes as well.
Yes, well, thestefaniediaz.com, Stephanie with an F, to learn more about my work and to subscribe. And then I am at the Stephanie Diaz on all platforms.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Stefanie.
Thank you so much.
Love that. Love that. Love everything about that. That was hot.
I love
Which
how
is
we
what
did that.
fuego
So
means, by the way.
I got that. I was like T with the T. Like that was fuego.
See how I teed that up? You see that? You see that? Yeah.
All right. So we're getting close to that time here. So T, what do we have for the breakdown this week?
All right. So in keeping with my co-host and her awesome planner, because I do the shameless plugs, that's my thing,
Thank
right?
you.
Video marketing is something that I feel does not get enough attention, specifically YouTube. And what a lot of people miss about YouTube, and they sit there and they complain like, I'm not going viral, I don't have a lot of views, and there's all this heartache around YouTube. So I wanted to unpack why YouTube may not be working for you. And the first things first is that YouTube is a search engine, right? It is actually the world's second largest search engine behind its parent company, Google. And the reason that's important for you to understand is that the same rules apply with regard to search engine optimization, or SEO, because YouTube flabbergasts a lot of people because they view it through the lens of entertainment rather than SEO. Which brings us to number 2, is you want to answer questions with your video. So because YouTube is a search engine, the actual top search phrase on YouTube is how to. They go to learn how to do something. So you can go to a tool called Answer the Public, and it will pull down from Google's API and tell you what types of questions people are asking around a particular root topic, so that you can, name your video that question and all the SEO best practices. And last but not least, you want to structure your video description the same way you would structure a blog post. That is huge. That is absolutely huge. So there are certain SEO fundamentals which are beyond the scope of this short breakdown, but you want to have your main topic up front, and then the less important stuff on the bottom. Use hashtags, use certain keywords. You want all of that in your description, because your description is what the search engine looks at. So that's why YouTube may be giving you a little bit of heartburn, because you're viewing video as entertainment as opposed to search content, and YouTube is a search engine.
Thank you for that, T, because so often, like, we do it innately, right? So when you're looking for something happens and how to, or what is, or who, just reviews, you're searching. And if you're not searching on YouTube, you're going to Google. And you know what Google is serving you? YouTube video. YouTube videos. So there it is. We have come to the end of another episode of Breakfast and Convos. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you next week. So we're here on Tuesdays. You catch us every Tuesday, that we are here serving you up the best in video marketing, digital entertainment, and news.
That's right. I'm T. Adeola, signing off.
And I am Liberty White, and we'll catch you next Tuesday. Thank you.
Bye.